Jeremy, stress is crippling. How do you not get crippled by it?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is 1 Peter 5:7, cast all your cares and anxiety to him. Because I think in such a chaotic world that we live in right now, it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to put a lot of pressure on myself or ourselves. And the more I get out of whack, the harder it is to recenter myself with the Lord. And if he's the focal point starting out every single day, or if I'm finding peace through how he wants me to find peace rather than I'm trying to fit in peace in throughout my days, weeks, tough situations in life, I find that naturally life is slower, the pace is controlled by the Lord, and I'm able to be more present in my work, relationships, building a church, wherever I'm at. I'm able to be more focused on the people that matter, and being able to genuinely be present, which I think can be very hard because distractions are prevalent. So, and I think when distractions are introduced, your mind wanders, and so stress is very much absorbed into how you're thinking. So my next plan is, or my for how my day's going to go about, it's like I'm thinking out of whack, I guess I should say, because I'm not centered to where, all right, the Lord's not leading me in this instance, or I've been distracted for this last half hour, so how am I fully present? So I think kind of that little recipe kind of introduces the ability to de-stress, but also the also dangerous opportunity to get off course. So, yeah.
Okay, so that was a fascinating answer, and it was really good. I think what's really cool about that is you are, in another way, I think what I'm hearing you say is you take your stress and you place it in the correct places. So you put your stress, meaning you put it in a different place because of your relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
You allow him to own what you believe he can own, and then you own what you can own.
Correct.
So how did you get there though?
Yeah.
Because that's a hard place to get to. Specifically if there's, if someone doesn't believe in God or Jesus or have a relationship with God. Mm-hmm. What's really cool is, I think when we talk about stress, is that's something that we all deal with. Mm-hmm. And so how did you begin to maybe even take steps toward even understanding that?
Well, I think you have to come from the opposite end of the spectrum to where you live in a high stress life where faith or the Lord's not your focal point, or you're the focus of my daily life. Because I've swung, everybody's life is filled with different pendulum swings, but when you swing to extremes to live the way the world wants me to live rather than the way the Lord's having me to be in lockstep with him, I've spent time running from God. I've spent time chasing the wrong things, right? And all that led me to was empty feelings. And empty feelings is exactly what stress induces stress, right? And I hated that feeling, right? It was just like, I thought I could dig myself out of problems. I thought, it's just like I always knew best, but I don't know best. And the more I realized that, like, hey, I need people to pray for me. I need to be having a strong prayer life, and seeing the actual results, right? It's almost like you put God to the test, and like he's passing that test every single time, but it's still, if I'm putting him to the test, I'm looking at it the wrong way, right? So I think all that kind of mixed together is I've experienced and dabbled in the wrong things of this world that left me empty. So, and I've also experienced the extreme joy that comes with having a walk with God, so that understanding what both provide, I know where I'm supposed to be, and I know where I feel most fulfilled. So I want to chase that, right? And I want to run the race with God rather than, running a race by myself.
But that is, and maybe not, but And what you're saying is so meaningful because you're not basing your relationship with God or your ability to move forward in life off of empty promises. You're basing it off of genuine experiences. And that's really meaningful, specifically when it comes to stress and peace. Because, we've talked recently about John chapter 14, verse 27.
Yeah.
Where Jesus talks about fragile peace. And what I hear you saying is the fragile things of this world became more obvious the more that you found them, the more that you got to a place where you understood them. And so what does it mean to you to have, what is fragile peace to you? Like, what have you found that to be and feel like?
I'd say fragile peace is something that's not built on anything sustainable, right? It's like, it's kind of the never-ending kind of conversation of happiness and joy, right? Joy is a state of being. Happiness, they come in spurts. Happiness comes in spurts. It's a temporary feeling that is very fleeting. So I think when it comes to fragile peace versus sustainable peace is fragile peace is something that like I can feel for a short amount of time, but I know it's going to end because it's not built on the right thoughts. It's not built on the right actions, and it's not necessarily built in the right counsel, or I'm not necessarily even maybe praying about the right things. A lot of it, it's everyone's got a different recipe for how peace is defined to them, but I've seen what a state of peace looks like when I introduce the Lord as the first part of my day. I spend quiet time with my own thoughts. I slow down, right? I'm a very fast, all over the place person because I want to help as many people as possible. I want to have the answers to everything. But part of life is not having the answers to everything and being okay with that. And once I kind of figured that piece of it out, and I'm still learning, right? It will never be a chase or never be a, I'll never have all the answers. But a sustainable peace is a lot more prevalent to where we're trying to go in life versus something that's fleeting to where fragile peace could only last for a season. And then it's gone, and then you're chasing that peace continually, and you're never going to get that feeling again, right? So it's just like, all right, what's the next best thing and the next best thing? So, kind of coming back to where that is, it's just like, hey, how do you define fragile peace? It's just something that's just like, yeah, it feels good right now, but I know that feeling's going to go away, and I'm not going to get to feel that again, and that scares me, right? So I want to build something that's sustainable, that's rock solid, that I know works, even if it's not the most sexy thing, you know what I mean? Or to the world, it's like, oh, that's kind of boring or whatever. But each individual has that opportunity to build sustainable peace and find their purpose, and that's what makes it so unique, is everyone finds it differently.
I like that you're talking about it in sustainability, so that you can keep it, because it's cool. I think it's really cool because you've removed the emotions and the feelings of it. When you talk about it like that, it's, okay, peace doesn't have to be a feeling I feel, even though it is okay if it's something I do feel and I do think about. And a state of being is really fascinating because you can be at peace and not just have it be a feeling that comes and it goes, like happiness. Just like joy, I can be joyful. That doesn't mean it's always circumstantial. And when it comes to being fragile, I just look around the world and I think of how fragile peace is between countries, between organizations, between people, between family members, between best friends. And sometimes it's just saying one thing or doing one thing or barely even being off just a little bit. And it feels as if fragile peace is a contract. If you do this, I'll do this, and we can be peaceful. That's so fragile. And that's not what peace is. Yeah. Because if you even think about a state of being whole and a wholeness, it's I am enjoying who I am right now, where I am right now, and where I'm going right now.
Yeah.
And where I am right now. Both I'm enjoying where I'm headed and where I am. And I can be good with both. Mm-hmm. I am whole. I am complete. And so I love where this conversation is going to go, and it is going. So Jeremy and I have been on the journey through life together for about 2 years now. Mm-hmm. And it's been so cool to see what's happened in our lives over the past 2 years. And so as we lean into talking about stress and talking about peace, what you're doing right now is you're actually listening to two friends talk about their experiences, and our desire is to be less stressed out. And I even want to ask you this question even after this is like, is stress bad? Because I think that would be even a good place to take a step. But we would love to be less stressed out, more peaceful, and take it really practical. Because I even think the question, how do I find peace, is actually the wrong question. And so let's take those two. So what was the first one I said? I forget. It was something about stress. I said, okay. So how do we is stress bad?
Yeah.
That's the first question. And then how do I find peace? And is that even the right question? So is stress bad?
Well, yeah, going back to the fragile piece that you're talking about, we're athletes, we grew up in that, and that's our mentality. And all I think of is just like, we outplay our contract, right? We want that next best feeling, right? We're negotiating, we got our agent, and, ultimately, we're looking for that raise, and we ultimately don't deserve it.
I love how you take everything to a sports analogy, by the way. That's one of my favorite things about you. Fly Eagles fly.
Yeah, go Birds, man. No, but going back to where is stress bad? Just being in the word, iron sharpens iron, Proverbs 27:17 just is what comes to mind. Or in the worldly terms, like pressure makes diamonds, right? And I think stress can be positive. It just depends on what you do. I think it's a lot of stress is about how you react, right? Are you quick? Do you evaluate the situation? Are you holistically prepared to go through a grind in certain seasons? Are you holistically prepared to ask for help when you don't know? Are you able to put aside pride and bring others alongside you? Do you have people that are praying for you? I think there's again a different, I like that word recipe, because there's a different recipe for everybody on how they can deal with stressful situations. But I think some of the biggest growth happens through high stress, especially seasons where it's almost like you blink and 3 months go, but then you wake up and you don't even necessarily recognize the person because you've gone through a lot in a short amount of time, and you're prepared for something that you didn't even think you were prepared for a couple months ago. So I think stress can be extremely positive, but negativity can creep in very easily depending on where your mind's at, right? I think you really need to be in tune with like your physical self too, to be spiritually and mentally sharp. Because if you're tired, or if you're injured, or a lot of different things creep, or you're eating bad and you're just kind of feeling not like yourself a lot, I think that's when can really introduce like high stress that you aren't built to handle, right? So again, it's a kind of a double-sided coin where how are you going to handle stress when a stressful situation hits you? It's kind of up to you and the foundation you've kind of put in place, right? Is it fragile, right? So if you're willing to put in the grind and really understand that, hey, I have a lot of faults. I am not perfect, nowhere near it. But I also have a desire to get better. I have a desire to do life with people that can make me better. I then think you can really conquer high stress situations. So
obviously I'm not a psychologist, even though I love psychology. I'm not a philosopher, even though I love philosophy. And I'm not a doctor, even though I love talking about doctoral type of things. And so what you're listening to is you're listening to two friends that are trying to help others and also grow themselves talk about stress. So take that into consideration with what we're saying. And realize that we need to have these conversations. And we need to talk about stress practically. Because obviously there's a level of stress that's crippling and not okay. And obviously there's a level of stress that is non-existent and doesn't help us grow. So there's an appropriate amount of stress that is right for you in this season.
Yep.
And I think that is why we need other people in our lives.
Yeah.
Because I need you to help me and understand the stress that I'm in. And I need you to ask me the questions that you do ask me to help me say, hey, am I owning what I can own? And am I controlling what I can control versus what I can't control and what I shouldn't own?
Correct.
And then how are we spreading that out in the community? And is this a communal thing or is this a Trevor thing? Is this a Jeremy thing? And then are we having stress that's relational growth, personal growth, business and work growth, and community growth or spiritual growth? And if we're trying to grow in all of these areas, guess what there's going to be? Resistance. And guess what that's going to cause? Stress. So if I'm trying to grow, guess what I'm going to have? Stress. So life is not without it if you want to grow and go somewhere with your life.
Yeah, and I want to add one thing while I'm thinking of it is, especially two dudes talking sometimes, I want to whoever's watching this, if you don't have, specifically the men, if you don't have arm holders or guys you're doing life with, you're doing it wrong, right? Because I think society tells you that, like, hey, we're macho, like we can handle a lot, but you are meant to do life and have people that can come alongside you, encourage you, challenge you, help you through these stressful situations, because we're not meant to do it alone. And I think that's where we can really get off course and not be able to handle the stress and the growth that we so much seek in our lives, is if we don't have anybody to share the journey with, right? Because then it's just like, but it's also no fun to win alone either, right? It's fun to come out of these stressful situations and celebrate the things along the way, and nobody wants to do that alone.
No, that's a huge aside, and it's really not an aside, because I think that's how we figure out if our stress is appropriate or not. You have a coach and you have a community. Boom. That's a great litmus test to see if the level of stress I am in is adequate from where I'm trying to go and the season I'm currently in. So I use my friends and the people I'm going through life with, and my wife, and a coach, and a counselor, or someone, or a psychologist, or someone that I'm getting a few different layers and a few different filters of, like, hey, here's where I'm trying to go. Is this the right amount of stress that I need to have? That's why we need coaches to coach us when we're training physically, or in a game, or on a team, or when we're trying to build something. Business coaches, because they have a different perspective than we have, because we're in the middle of it. It's obviously going to be really difficult in the middle of it. But is this the price that it takes, or is it worth it or not? Meaning, like, sometimes it costs something. Everything costs. So is this what it costs to go here? Or am I spending my time or my life in different ways, or the things that take from me my psychology or my energy or my effort or my money or just time? Am I spending that incorrectly? Because a lot of times I realize, oh, I spent this much time on that app. I can gain more time if I'm not on that app so long.
Yeah. I think the higher
as an example, right?
Yeah, I think the higher the higher the spend on the wrong things, the higher the tax on your life and your stress, right? Because, I mean, I just go to think, I just use music as a reference. I chased music and different artists around the country for a long time, and it's fun, right? In the worldly sense, you have a great time, you meet great people. It's a community. But at the end of the day, like, it only gets you so far, right? I think we chase these certain things of this world that aren't necessarily helping us become the person, not necessarily that God intended us to be, but why we're here on this earth, right? To really find our purpose, is we chase things that almost like go in a merry-go-round, right? They're always going to be there, right? And those things don't go away, right? Sports, they don't go away. They're always a fallback, right? Or TV shows or apps or music, whatever it is, those things are always going to be there, right? And the things that are always there make it very comfortable, right? I think when we become uncomfortable and we have to choose things that we're not used to, or choose things and sacrifice things what we are used to, that's when you can really go after the growth that you're seeking, is because you have to shed. You know, there's a reason why snakes shed skin all the time. It's like they need a new version of themselves, right? It's like we constantly have to be shedding and having kind of accountability to really become that 5-tool player we're looking to become in life, because otherwise it's just like, all right, I always have, if I have fallbacks, right, I'm just always going to use that as a vice, rather than like, hey man, I've got people that are going to hold me accountable, or I've got people that really want the best for me, and those people are going to help me realize that or help me attain that growth. I think then's where we kind of really take those steps forward in life, is when we're willing to shed the comfortability and then thrive in uncomfortability.
So would you say the difference, or how is this valuable, between stress that's forced in your life and stress that's chosen for your life? Because in some ways, we learn to deal with stressful situations that we didn't choose by choosing stressful situations before we have to choose. So moments of stress, is that something like, for example, we both ran a marathon Sunday. Mm-hmm. That was a chosen point of stress.
Yep.
We strained and we stressed through those miles. That was chosen. Yep. We said, you know what? We're opting in for this. We even paid for it. I mean, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
We just paid for that kind of stress. And that type of thing teaches us how to deal with stressful situations that aren't chosen, that are maybe even more difficult, that maybe even cost more relationally and internally. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I think chosen stress is an area that a lot of people aren't willing to go, right? Versus stress that's induced by negative decisions or too much of something, to where it's just like, oh, we're left like, oh man, what am I supposed to do? And then we become very frantic, anxious. So yeah, I think chosen stress is something where it's building up a lot of fortitude. It's building up a lot of strength in your mind that, one, you have the capacity. Two, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You know what I mean? Again, but to those that are really just searching for, hey, like chosen stress, I challenge somebody to go after some chosen stress. Set some goals that like you would think are crazy. Like a year ago, you tell me I'm running a marathon, I'd be like, dude, you're out of your mind. Like, no way. And then like now I look at it as like, what's next?
Well, okay, just share what's happened with you over a year, if you don't mind. Like even just physically to get to the point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's a great example.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did 75 hard in the fall and ran 5 miles every day for 75 days, and was really diligent. Put on a few pounds since then, but hey, I love donuts and sweets, so don't hold it against me. But and some ice cream. But hey, anyways, I think what that really taught me is, one, I needed more discipline in my life, and 75 hard really helped me slow down, right? It's like, it was, I don't want to call it boring, but it's like, hey, I had to stick to a regimen, but I was able to refocus in some certain areas that I had neglected, and then also have to turn away to some areas that like, hey, like going out or hanging out with certain friends or whatever it is, I just, like, those things I had to sacrifice, right? And then kind of after that, it was just like, hey, let me just keep running this race of life because I found like a new hobby, but also it's like, oh, cool, I've challenged myself here. I can do that. What's a bigger goal, right? And then through that, it's like, hey, we've helped others kind of find fitness. We've had other people run a marathon with us that I necessarily wasn't friends with or dating a year ago. You like all sorts of crazy things. So, and I think now I'm just in that frame of mind is I don't want to, again, it's very delicate to where I don't want to become consumed by the next goal. But I think if I'm not living in a state of complacency and I always want to be challenging myself to something new, or it doesn't have to be like a rung above, but just something new that maybe like embracing the suck. It's like something I'm not good at. I'm not usually okay with, like, I like to be good at everything. So it's like, all right, what am I not necessarily good at, or what's a challenge that I can go seek out? Yes, where it doesn't consume my mind mentally, but it's going to induce some of that, like, stress that we're talking about, that, like, hey, it's something I'm going to have to overcome over time, but I can do it because I've done it before. And ultimately doing something like that is going to remove a lot of the self-induced stress that comes with bad decisions or neglection or putting things off, just, whatever it may be. Again, we have priorities in life, and where are my priorities? If you're able to constantly ask yourself that and have kind of repetitive gut checks, I think you can really take those next steps that you're looking for, especially if you got people doing life with you. So.
And if you choose, like you're saying, when you're going to learn how to overcome those variables that are stressful, then when the variables come that you don't choose, you still get to apply the similar principles. And you're much more calm. You're much more slow through the stress. And then you don't let the stress overcome you because you have learned to overcome it on a consistent basis. And I think that's the win. It's you either learn the principles because you choose to learn them now, or you will be forced to learn them later in a much more uncomfortable way that you weren't expecting. I want to know how to do and overcome in a controlled environment that maybe doesn't have other people involved. Because when the stress comes my way where it's a bunch of people that I really love and really care about are involved, I want to be prepared for that. And I think there's more in preparation than ever before right now. Because we're so intertwined, we're so connected, we're so consumed by the greater world now than ever. And because of that, if we're not careful, we won't take the time to prepare personally. We will say, well, because I have all of the content I need, I can ask AI, it can give me all the answers. Well, just because you can do that doesn't mean that that's changed you. You have knowledge, but you don't have any experience, which back to how we began the conversation. The experience that you had led you to give your life and receive peace more and more and more until you're like, oh man, I actually want this relationship with God. I'm actually going to surrender my life to him because of what you've experienced, not because of what you knew, but because you put what you knew to the test or what you knew about to the test. And then you didn't just know about it anymore. You knew it practically, which is such a game changer.
Yeah, you talk preparation, right? I think just the first thing goes back is like you practice how you play. And I think when it comes...
Not Allen Iverson.
Yeah, no. Talking about practice? Nah. Oh, man. Just need some grape soda and a bag of Fritos, man. No, but love it. But now kind of going back to practice how you play, I think, it's like cramming for a test in college, man. It's like you always think you can do it. And it's like, all right, it's possible. But like you're trying to defy the odds all the time, right? The lack of preparedness, the rushing, the cramming is self-induced stress that you're not desiring, right? It's gonna induce a lot of fragility into your life. You're like constantly living on an edge, right? And sure, you can fly by the seat of your pants for some seasons, but it's gonna burn you out real quick, right? It's gonna leave you searching for the next thing. It's gonna leave you for that next hobby that's like the next thrill, right? And you're just gonna kind of take that merry-go-round back to stage one a lot of times because you haven't found your calling, right? You're just finding something of the world that's gonna plug a hole and hopefully fix the stress that you have in your life, rather than actually uncovering like what's really going on under the hood. Like, what do I need to really reassess on how I'm thinking about things? It's like studying for a test. Like, have I read all the chapters, right? Am I skimming over things, or am I actually reading things? Am I spark noting things? Am I AI, asking ChatGPT for the answers, or no? Am I willing to get the answers wrong a few times? Am I willing to fail a few times to then get that A that I'm looking for, right? Because I think then you will take those steps you're looking for when you're not skipping, you're not glazing over, and you're challenging yourself to fail first, succeed second.
So I've heard this. One of the differences between professionals and amateurs is understanding how they prepare.
Yeah.
Because in the preparation, you understand the totality of what you're about to do. And the more you understand the whole thing, the easier and the quicker you're able to pivot slightly. And it's those slight pivots and adjustments that are game time decision making that actually allows you to perform at the highest level you can. What you can get out of yourself when the pressure and the time is on, when the clock is ticking, or you have to adjust on the fly. It's easier for you to adjust on the fly because you understand the whole game. You understand what's happening all around you. You don't just understand what you're supposed to do. You understand what the person beside you is supposed to do, what the person you're against, or these things, what they are most tendency to do. And you're able to adjust and pivot just slightly. And then your performance level rises. And I think it's so cool if you just think about just back to your past year, which I love. I love your past year. I've loved being on the journey with you and seeing how you've changed your life physically, but it's impacted your mentality, and that's impacted your spirituality. And I think one of the easiest things for people to do if they want to go further in their life spiritually, relationally, emotionally, or mentally, those areas that are more difficult to understand or see, is first learn discipline physically. And then invite those other areas into that journey as you choose. Physical stress maybe it would help me mentally deal with stress, because those disciplines, they transcend a little bit into the other areas of our lives, because they still require us. It just is a part of us that's not as easy to see or to weigh or to measure or to scale. So I think that's really helpful. And as we think about like chosen stress and not chosen stress and pressure, how does somebody find peace? If someone is struggling with peace because they're stressed out, they're worn out, they're burned out, all of these things that could maybe emotionally, feeling wise, or how have you begun to find peace? And is that even the right question?
Yeah, and I'm not going to say his name, but this just brings me to a conversation I had yesterday. You talked burnout, you talked feeling like an identity crisis with their job, anger all the time. It's a lot of compounding things that are ready to bubble over, and they're coming out in somebody's life in ways that they don't want, right? But they don't know where to start. And that's, I think, the toughest thing is like, it all seems like a mountain way too hard. It seems like Everest is in front of you, and I'm in a bathing suit in the middle, and it's like, I'm going to get like a third of the way up and I'm going to freeze to death. And people are just, they don't know where to start. And how do I take that first step, right, is probably the hardest, right? Because it's forcing, like, again, whether it's quitting a job or like having a relationship that is really bogging you down that you don't know how to get out of, or a family member is sick and you don't know what to do about it. And it's just like, again, it's compounding. You've got to figure out like one thing that you can do today that's like going to at least get you on the path, right? Because I think you can't conquer everything in 1 week. But you have to start. And being willing to start is also a mindset, right? If you're like kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out and hoping for change, you're grasping at something that I don't think is really attainable. Like, you've really got to again, starting with physical stress is great. Like, that'll really put your mind in a place that, hey, I can overcome these physical challenges. But like, when it becomes kind of a battle of physical wits, mental wits, spiritual wits, kind of all at one, you've got to really identify just one step that I can take that at least is going to alleviate something, to where then I could take that second step. And I think a lot of that comes into like being involved and having people to share the journey with, because if you're not able to voice some of these things, that's where a lot of anger comes out. That's where a lot of stress comes out, where like you don't even know how you live, right? And you don't recognize who you see. So yeah, kind of going back is I would encourage somebody that if you're in that state where, man, I feel like I'm in a dead end job, or like I don't know where my next relationship's coming from, or I have a lot of broken relationships and I don't know how to fix them, or my body breaks down all the time, whatever it is, figure out one thing that can like get you from the goal line to the 2-yard line. You still got 98 yards to go, but like, let's get you somewhere and get you in that mindset that it is attainable, right? Because that's where, again, your body can get you places, but I think your mind can take you the rest of the way. if you train it, right? So that's where kind of, yes, going back to where you were asking is like, don't try and conquer too many things at once, but also you got to have hope, right? And to have hope, you got to talk about things, right? You got to normalize that it's okay to not be okay. And once you do that, you got to understand we're all humans out here. We all struggle, and find some people that want to help you through the struggle, and you'd be surprised what could happen, right? Change can happen in a very short order.
I love your mindset when it comes to development and growth, because you really think you have big dreams. You have big goals. But you do not force them to happen tomorrow, because that's not possible. All of your goals cannot happen tomorrow. They're too big.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful and amazing, and I think that's really important. And I think a lot of times we overestimate what could or should or we want to have happen in a short amount of time, and we underestimate what can happen in a long amount of time. Mm-hmm. And it's a long, disciplined action in the same direction that says it's only a matter of time before I get there, before I see that come into my life, before I find the right person to commit my life to have a family with, to build a family with, to have a relationship with. And if I can be consistent in the same direction that's really valuable and actually matters, then it's only a matter of time.
Yeah. It's only a matter of time really is a great way to put it, because, going back to like charisma requires like something that someone said to me recently, charisma requires immediate obedience. And I think like people lose charisma when they get lost in their head. A lot of people are charismatic. I don't know like why that came to mind right there, but it's like you said obedience, and charisma I think induces hope. And I think in society today, it's so loud, there's so many distractions, that hope quickly turns into hopelessness or being hopeless. I see so many distractions of like, oh, you can get this, or like spend here and like you'll be rewarded here, or get this surgery and you'll feel better about yourself, or do this. And like, again, the world is throwing so many arrows at you that like might provide hope. But then as soon as we don't attain that, then there's hopelessness that's instantly, if I'm not prepared. And then I've got that self-induced stress that I'm not looking for. So I think it's just like there's compounding interest in a lot of things, the way the world has us living right now. And that's where, wrapping back to your kind of thought is like, what's a good way to put it? Take one step at a time. Yeah, take one step at a time.
Well, people need to know about you, though. And a lot of the things you've said, let me say a few of the things. Well, everything you've said. Okay. Everything that Jeremy has said, he has one direction that he's headed with his life. Just so that you know this, because he's answering most of the things that I'm asking him, and he's saying most of the things that he is saying because he has one direction. You're headed one place, and you have one real main goal. And then everything else fits inside of that because those are priorities within the main priority that you have.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts, keep the main thing the main thing,
Right.
Yeah.
But everyone needs to know that that's how you're answering these questions.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if they don't understand that, they're going to be immensely confused, and they will think that they will have something that they don't actually have.
Yeah.
Which is very important because what you have is different than what a lot of people have.
Yep.
And how you're answering is based off of what you think and believe that you have, which is the main thing. Now, I do want you to talk about that. But I think what is that direction is immensely key. Because does your direction actually matter? And how long, if you go in that direction, will it actually matter? For example, we live in a finite world. and I'm a limited human being. If my peace is left up to me, guess what I have? Probably fragile, limited peace. If it's left up to me. Or if I give my peace up to something else that controls it under these certain conditions, then my peace is left up to that limited thing and what that can provide for me. So there's another question here that's, what is my peace in? And if I answer this question, let me ask it again. How do I find peace? You do not find perfect peace, is my answer. You can find fragile peace. You can go on a treasure hunt. You can do a lot of different things to find limited peace. That's conditional. Unconditional peace that is not fragile, that is perfect, can only come from a source that is that, which is perfect, which is not limited and not conditional. I personally have only ever found that in one place, and that can only be received. It's not something you go necessarily find. It may be something that you find out, that you test and know, that you taste and see, but it's not a piece that you go on a treasure hunt for. It's only an earn. It's something that can only be received from a place that is perfect and unconditional. So if you could, Jeremy, could you talk about how important the direction and the main thing being the main thing is for you? Because that's how you've answered most of these questions. And I just want to also highlight that your source of peace is what's going to either limit you or bring you into the freedom of limitlessness.
Yeah, and it's a good point to relate to kind of when you're watching this is, again, Jeremy's peace is not going to be your peace, right? And the way I find peace might not be the way, it most likely is going to be differing from how you find the perfect peace in your life. But, kind of going back to just a source of motivation for me is, the fragile peace. In Romans 8:18, the pain you experience now will not compare to the joy you experience later. So the stress, the fragile peace, the desire for perfect peace is a journey, but a unique journey to you, a unique journey that if you're willing to be pruned, if you're willing to cry, if you're willing to experience all sorts of emotion and go through change, you'll be wildly amazed at where your potential is, right? But I think, again, you've got to be willing to evaluate where your life's at, where you're going, and what it's going to take to get there. And then it's an ultimate decision of just hey, do I want to continue to kind of plug and find the peace that is fleeting? Or am I really trying to chase something outside of myself and finding a purpose that's going to sustain and provide in all seasons and point me in that direction where I'm steadily climbing for the rest of my life, right? And that you almost see stress in the future as, yeah, sure, I get knocked down, but I get up again, easily. And nothing's going to phase you. Sure, seasons are going to come where, you're affected differently, pain, loss, fragile relationships, whatever it is, all things are conquerable, but you got to start building so when the mountains or, valleys come, they're a lot less shorter and you're back at the top. And yeah, it's sometimes, so it is hard to, put myself out of my own journey and understand that, yes, whoever's watching this is probably going to have a different direction or have a different journey than myself. But I want you to know that your goals and dreams are attainable, and you got to believe, right? You can't go into something thinking oh, this might work out, and sometimes they don't. That's okay. But if you're willing to put 120% effort into a lot of things in this world, your goals are a lot more achievable. Your success in life and what you define as success is going to change. Your relationships are going to strengthen, and you're just going to live with a lot more joy in your life. I can guarantee you that. take yourself out of a lot of the equations in life and really put yourself in others' shoes and how you can honor others around you, how you can just bless others in your life, and how you can essentially just get out of your own way, you'd be surprised at the growth you experience in this next season.
And I think what's really cool about everyone being unique is when we think about, there's a lot of different sources for peace, levels. And I think in John 14:27, when Jesus talks about perfect peace, what's cool is if you want to begin to experience or try to experience that peace, it's the reason I think it can be uniquely experienced for everyone is because everyone is unique, but it can still be from the same source, from one source, that perfect peace. Meaning he is trying to be personal in that moment and say, hey, my peace that is from the source that is me can actually meet you where you are, which is uniquely and personal and unique to you.
Yeah.
But it's still that one source. And so, which is really, really cool because that's a personal relationship with God. And I think that's really valuable. And that's something that I know you believe and I believe. And as we talk about this, we just really want others to find and be able to take a step toward peace. And I think what would you like to add to that?
No, I thought of something there of like, what are you willing to do to feel something, right? Because I think a lot of people are just okay with just going through the motions in life and like not feeling anything or having to deal with anything that's caused them stress in the past.
Sure. Maybe even they're numb to it.
Yeah, exactly. We've become so numb to a lot of things, and a lot of our daily actions contribute to numbness, and then it's even harder to take a step towards peace, right? Or we forget what peace even looks like because we're lying to ourselves that like we're okay with status quo. I think one thing that I think of is just like the biggest competition in any work setting, right, is not your competitor John Deere down the street. No, it's people hate change, right? And change management in life is extremely hard. And if you're willing to really like, if you're willing to go through, you'd be surprised what sort of innovation can be introduced into your life. I think that's the big thing is like, yeah, people, it's hard to buy things in this day and age. It's like, because there's the next best thing, right? And also people are very comfortable with what they currently have. But if you're willing to step out and really innovate your life, right? Because the world's innovating every single day, right? What's that next version that you see for yourself? And what are you willing to do to feel something and induce stress into your life, the good kind of stress, to take that next step?
I'm trying to find, there was this really cool definition of peace that I was reading about recently, and then I was just working through, how would we define it? And I love the idea of wholeness. Wholeness. I am full. I am completely satisfied. And I was thinking about this. The opposite of peace isn't just chaos. It's inner disintegration.
Yeah.
Inner disintegration.
Yeah.
It's when fear fragments you, when stress takes the lead, and when you're busy on the outside but breaking on the inside. And I was really working through a definition, and I just want to share this definition. Perfect peace is the unshakable wholeness, inner security, and rest that comes from being fully connected to, surrendered to, and sustained by the presence of God. It's not the absence of struggle, but the presence of someone greater than the struggle. And so as I think of as I think of the things that are really bigger than me, I've realized that I need to begin to own the things that I can own, and I don't need to own the things I can't own. And the difference between being destroyed and being burned out versus breakthrough and victory and accomplishment, that difference is ownership. Burnout happens a lot of times for me when I own the things that I shouldn't own and I own too much. Or I don't own anything at all, and it's everyone else's fault. And if I do either of those things, and I don't own what only I should own and can control, because I can control the decisions that I make. I can control the way that I prepare. I can control how I respond or react, the decisions that I make, and how I think and what I work on and what I work through, and where I go and how I dream, and the direction that I'm headed and the things I commit to. Like, I can own those things, but I don't need to own everything that also happens around me. And I need to own something, because if I don't own anything, then I don't have any ownership of those things, and I don't actually accomplish anything with my life or go anywhere. And I end up thinking that I'm going to have something that I'm never going to have because I'm not growing or going anywhere. The difference between burnout and breakthrough is ownership.
Yeah.
Because I determine it.
Yeah, we determine ownership, but at the same time, you know, we talked about this with somebody the other day, is what are we stewarding versus what are we thinking we own, right? There's a lot of things in this world that we think we own, or we have a right to ownership, when in reality, we're in this life to steward these things versus owning.
Yeah. Like I'm the source of it, and mean like, I own that because it's mine.
Yeah.
That I think that's a really prideful position.
Yeah.
Because I love the word stewardship, because it's like, this is what I've been given. Did I do anything to earn this time on this planet? No. I have been given it, so it's up to me to steward it correctly, and to see it for what it is, and to see it as a gift.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is.
Yep.
Man, I really love these are the types of conversations that we need to be having with each other. And we're throwing a mic on it to encourage you to begin to have these types of conversations with the people in your life or someone in your life. And I love the challenge that Jeremy gave us earlier of like, we got to get these types of people, but we got to get going this type of way. Because this is either going to be helpful for us or going to be hurtful. It will be helpful if it provokes us to actually push a direction, to see a change, to see adjustments, to see some growth, to see someone stop avoiding, maybe even stop numbing, or to see things for what they are, and to actually walk through life with others. As we tackle stress today, obviously we didn't exhaust it. As we tackle peace today, obviously we didn't exhaust either of those things. Is there anything you'd like to leave everyone with? Maybe a closing thought, idea, or question?
Nah, just stop lying to yourself and say that change isn't possible. Stop, again, making excuses in life. I've made plenty of them over the years. And again, if you're able to live in a forward-thinking mind that change is possible, and you're willing to get in the mud with some people and really see some change, just know that it is. And I encourage, and yeah, I could talk about this kind of stuff for a couple hours, you know, it's just kind of funny. But I'm passionate about it because, you know, when you see firsthand change in your own life and then close people around you and their lives too, I want that for everybody. And I've got friends in my life, man, that like maybe my relationships are strained or they look a little bit differently. I still love them the same, man. And there's some people I yearn for that like they can find what I found. Maybe not spiritually, ultimately, that's not my decision. That's kind of the Lord's, right? But ultimately that they can find a purpose or a calling that maybe reduces some numbness in their lives or helps them go down a path towards a purpose that they didn't even think of for themselves or think was possible. And again, we remove the status quo from our lives. And yeah, I appreciate you having this conversation. It's been fun. Looking forward to many more. And yeah.
That's so good. Let's end this way. I thought of this while you were talking. If I want you to think of one person that is that way, meaning maybe they are numb, maybe they haven't found what you have found. Maybe don't give them an out in saying that's up to not them, because I think it maybe is up to them more than it's their choice still. Yeah. So anyways, could you say what you would want to encourage them right where they are, that you wish, like if they were sitting here, or they were listening, think of one person. How would you encourage them right where they are? Because I think I would love to hear that. And I think it would be great for others to hear that, because they need to maybe be encouraged that they don't know you and you don't know them. But this could be a really cool opportunity for us to even just hear some things from a friend.
Yeah. First, tell you, I love you. I think about you a lot, and I don't want you to settle for where you're at in life. You check certain boxes, you've attained certain success, but I see dreams and capabilities that are possible. And I don't want you to wake up in 5 to 10 years and be like, I could have done more. Right. And success drives a lot of people by money, by relationship status, by things, by trips, whatever it is. But I challenge you to redefine what success looks like, right? Because does this current version of success, are you happy, right? Are you sustained? Is this something where you wake up in 5 years and you're going to be you're okay with how things are? Because I know that I see more for you. I see creativity. I see a journey and steps that already have been taken but maybe stunted, that if you get back on this path, I think you can achieve beyond your wildest dreams. And please don't stop dreaming, and be able to dream, right? Don't be happy with where you're at, because, you don't want to wake up one day and say, woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? And again, my direction is going to be different than your direction, but be willing to go in a direction that you're proud of, right? And that you can not just wake up one day and say like, man, it was great to, go to my kids' soccer games and have birthday parties and this, but it's just like, I could have gotten more out of life, right? But I was stuck at this one job, or, I stuck with the wrong hobbies, or didn't challenge myself creatively enough. That, again, there's a lot of time wasted, and, we only get one life to live. And yeah, my prayer is that, this is a good friend that this isn't necessarily about, but I always got to remind myself is, what's our why, right? What's your why in life? And constantly evaluate that and be willing to adjust and refocus if you're clearly not sustained or feeling whole, and know that there's a way up, not a way out, a way up, right? Because a way out, you're probably not going to induce much change, but a way up gets you to that next level that you're searching for. So just know it's possible. I love you, and you mean so much to me, and I'm proud to call you a friend. And Jeremy's out. Peace.
That's so good. That was good I think that's just good for all of us to hear and be encouraged by. Love you, man.
Love.
I enjoy this conversation, and this is just one of all of the like these all the time.
Amen.
So you guys have a great day. Full Vantage Podcast, getting different vantage points of the people that we love, care about, and want to learn from in life. Let's do it. See ya. Have a good day.